Okay, I want to switch gears, Larry. CIA Director William Burns, said, "We are in a once in a generation opportunity to recruit spies within Russia and within the Russian government." First of all, with your experience with the CIA, how would that work as far as recruiting, infiltrating the Russian government? And then secondly, what would these new spies be tasked to do? Is this about potentially assassinating Vladimir Putin or just gathering intel the United States can feed back to Ukraine?
It highlights, illustrates that Burns is a damn moron. There's no other way to describe it. For God's sake, if you're going to recruit spies from Russia, why do you announce it? Just like announcing, hey, we're going to attack you next Wednesday. Be surprised. And we did the same thing with China. Just announced yesterday, oh yeah, we're recruiting we got lots of new spies in China. If you're really doing intelligence work, so the purpose of recruiting people, Russians and Chinese government officials, people with access to military secrets, access to technological secrets, access with what's going on politically, is that we want to know exactly what's happening so that we can make decisions, so the president can be briefed and know with some certainty that, yeah, the Russians are bluffing, or no, the Russians are dead serious about this, or the Chinese, same thing. To know, for example, like during the Cuban Missile Crisis, to know that the real reason the Russians were doing this was they were reacting to the presence of U.S. nuclear missiles in Turkey, and therefore that was a way to solve it. So that kind of intelligence could be passed and could be used. So I'm all in favor of governments spying on other governments to find out what they're doing. And that means I'm also in favor of China and Russia spying on us. It's the name of the game. And everybody pretends it's only a one-way street. Oh, the United States can spy because we're the good guys and everybody else is bad. Yeah, that's nonsense. Just recognize we live in a big pants world, and governments with any kind of sense are going to try to collect intelligence upon the intentions and plans of their opponents or people they view as their opponents or potential enemies. So for Burns to come out and announce it like that, it's just, one, it's unprofessional. Two, it's embarrassing. Why, you don't go around bragging that, hey, I can run the fastest of anybody in this school. And it turns out you can't. Because the ones who actually can perform and can do it, they're usually not the ones bragging about it. It's just, my approach to this is just pretend the opposite, that, oh man, we're in the dark, and we don't know how we're going to get out of this, but we're just going to continue to work it. Meanwhile, you may have all the secrets and a camera planted in Vladimir Putin's bedroom. It doesn't make sense for Burns to talk about it this way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the thing that shocked me was not only did he openly talk about it, but then he said they were recruiting through Telegram. So he even announced, hey, listen, we put out this video. It's been wildly successful, 2 million views, and we've had people contact us. And now we're starting to get into the Russian government and the Russian military. And I'm like, why are you saying these things? Like, did you and Zelensky get together and decide, like, okay, the best way to do this is to let the enemy know exactly what we're doing? Like, I keep trying to figure out, like, is this the art of war where you pretend to be weak when you're strong so you can strike? Or is this just stupidity on display?
Yeah, no, I think it's mass stupidity on display. Did you see the video that the Russians created in response to that American video?
I did not know.
It's hysterical. I posted it at Sonar 21. You can find it there. So Well, it starts off just like the American video of showing a guy waking up in bed, then showing this a very obese woman eating fast food on her couch, slumped over watching television, and it says, "As you get dressed to go to work today, you're going to have to fight your way through uh, Black Lives Matter and Antifa protesters." And it showed the protest video, and train derailments. And it showed the train that derailed in Ohio and flames bursting out, and school shootings. So it was highlighting all the things really going on in the United States. And they said, "So you come work now for KGB." And there's a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger in one of his movies where he's dressed up in a KGB uniform. And it says, just go to Brooklyn, look for the guy in the tracksuit and say, "Are you the Russian hacker?" And I mean, it was just, it's hysterical. Now, the reason Bill Burns, the CIA recruitment video, got 2 million views, people couldn't believe they thought it was a joke. They thought it was actually Babylon B putting out some comedy. And then they realized, oh my God, they're serious. And that the very last person that you would want to recruit as an intelligence agent working for you is somebody who would watch a video like that and say, "Hey, I want to work for you." Because I guarantee you, they're wearing a tinfoil skull cap at home.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. So I'm going to go to sonar21.com after this, your website. I'm going to watch that, and I'll email you my response to it. But
it's very funny.
Speaking of media and the CIA, this may be conspiracy, so I would love for you to clear it up. But is the CIA infiltrating the mainstream media in order to push a narrative on the American people? Or is that just rumors? Whenever I tell friends or family that someone, from the CIA has agreed to come on my channel, it's the number one question they ask. So I just thought I would just ask it.
Well, the CIA over the years engaged with, it's called covert action and the media influence operations. And I did a brief eight weeks working on a project related to Afghanistan during the war against the Soviets when they were in Afghanistan in the 1980. This was the fall of 1985. And what that consisted of at the time was providing money to journalists and to other people that would go out and either write articles, produce an article, or produce a documentary, a movie, a film. Sometimes they knew that they were taking CIA money, and sometimes they didn't. Sometimes articles were actually planted in media. There's one guy in France who was just famous for his hatred of the CIA. And he was always convinced that the CIA was behind this, that, or the other thing. Yeah, and we planted articles in his magazine, and he didn't realize it. So, yeah, that can happen. Well, but what's going on in the United States now is just you've got the corporate control of media has become more concentrated. Those corporations are filled with people with direct ties to now the Biden administration and to people at the CIA. They're more than willing to take information from the CIA and just repeat it without any kind of critical thinking or any kind of challenge. So we are living in an age of where disinformation and actual lies and misinformation is more prevalent than I've ever seen. And that's why channels like yours provide an alternative to the just diatribe of propaganda that spills out of the cable news shows.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, thank you for clearing that up. Now some people can quit asking me to ask you that. I recently had the honor of seeing the Sound of Freedom movie the day before it went to the public. It's about a former CIA agent that helps rescue kidnapped children.
Was he CIA or Homeland Security? I thought it was a Homeland Security.
I read both, so I didn't know if maybe he had done both. But okay, we'll call it Department of Homeland Security. And then yesterday I was able to interview the producer and creator of the movie.
Cool.
I wanted to know, is the CIA involved in actively taking down major trafficking organizations around the world, or do they contribute to it? And then did you see that the US government admitted that 85,000 migrant children have gone missing in the United
Mhm.
States? They have no idea where they came from. They don't know where they went. They don't know what's being done to them. What are your thoughts on this?
But the short answer to your question is the CIA is not doing anything on that front.
Okay.
For one reason, it's not a law enforcement organization. It does not, any information that it would collect could not necessarily be used in the prosecution of people that were guilty of these crimes. Also, the other way the CIA works, it's not like a very agile news outlet that can say what's the story of the day, what's going on, what do we need to cover. Instead, it's very much a bureaucratic process. About a year in advance, they come up with a list of collection requirements, and that's put together by one section within the CIA, but it identifies for each country, like if in Honduras, what are the collection priorities? If the CIA is going to work there, the CIA chief of station needs to know what is it that Washington wants. And they get evaluated according to whether they judge that. And let me give you an example. After the Israeli embassy was bombed in Buenos Aires by it looks like people connected possibly to Libya back in 1992, I led a team down to both Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay to look at what we needed to do to upgrade counterterrorism activities. And in talking to, actually, it was believed at the time that Hezbollah, the rumor was that Hezbollah had been involved with that attack. So when I met with the chief of station in Buenos Aires, his name was Bill. And I said, Bill, where is Hezbollah on your collection list? And he goes, they're not on the list. So I said, you're not collecting on this bombing? No, because he's not going to get promoted. If he can't just go off on his own and say, oh boy, this just happened and we need to collect on it. So I literally, we got back to Washington, D.C., had to write it up as a collection requirement so that the CIA would go out and do it. So it is a very bureaucratic process. And it's not like they're following the news and trying to be focused on current events. So with respect to child trafficking, there's no, I can't see any incentive on behalf of the CIA to want to pursue that other than to identify, when I was active, I knew that one of the CIA sources who was a senior government official in Honduras was a notorious pedophile, and they used his pedophilia as a way to recruit him.
Okay.
So
yeah. What are your thoughts on the 85,000 missing children? Is this like just being blown out of proportion on the Republican side in Congress? When I heard that in the testimony that I watched, I gasped. I was like,
yeah,
oh my gosh. And I did the math and I was like, wait a minute. That's 4.5 Utah Jazz basketball stadiums full of children gone, missing.
Yeah.
It's insane to me that they don't know where they are. It's incredible to me.
Yeah, well, it doesn't mean that they're all necessarily trafficked, but it does underscore that this whole process is not, under no kind of government control or regulation. It's out of control. And by virtue of that, without having those controls in place, criminal organizations can exploit it significantly. A lot of those kids may wind up in chicken and turkey factories or pig plants up in Iowa, where they paid less than a minimum wage and forced to live in squalor, but use them as slave labor.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was Alabama or Mississippi, but they busted a meat processing plant that had 30 kids under the age of 13 working there in middle of the night, long hours. I mean, we have child labor laws for a reason, but These companies decided to roll the dice. So yeah, again, it doesn't mean they're all being trafficked, but they are missing, and that is very concerning.
They are being abused, whether it's sexual abuse or physical abuse or being exploited in ways that are criminal.
Yeah. Otherwise, the people would check in. I have this kid. Everything's good. You can come. You guys can come check up, and a department or the Family Protective Services can come do a check in or whatever. Okay. This is big in the news. Let me know if you're not comfortable talking about this, but the Biden family has been accused of running a silent bribery scheme in which they sell influence for millions of dollars.
Yeah.
The majority of those payments, we now know, are coming from Ukraine. Is there any possibility that Biden is giving so much U.S. taxpayer dollars to Ukraine in order to keep his family's skeletons in the closet? Or is he really just a benevolent wartime president doing his best to help the underdog?
Yeah, no, he is the most corrupt president in the history of the United States, hands down. And this Biden crime family enterprise has been going on. It's a pay for play on a scale that we haven't seen. It surpasses anything the Clintons actually did. Hillary set up her own pay for play using the Clinton Foundation as a way to coerce money out of foreign governments to give it to them, and then in exchange for reciprocity, I think is the term.
Yeah.
So there's absolutely to understand why was Ukraine so much of a target, not just for the Bidens, but for other wealthy U.S. oligarchs. Let's call them what they are. Ukraine represents in the world, it's ranked number 4 in terms of natural resources, particularly with rare earth minerals. The number 1 country is Russia. And yet, in Europe, the poorest country in Europe was Ukraine. How can a resource-rich country like Ukraine be actually the poorest? And it was because of these outside people like the Bidens going in, sitting at a table, being paid millions of dollars, and then taking that wealth out of the country, not investing it in the country, not building up Ukraine. And that's why Ukraine to this day remains the poorest in Europe. And that's why Biden, I think that has been one of the driving factors to use Ukraine as his proxy, because the Ukrainians were so compliant in making alliances with Western businessmen and Western investment firms like BlackRock, that they could offer them monopoly profits. And what a contrast when you look at what has happened in Russia. Vladimir Putin got rid of the oligarchs, reined them in, and then invested that money heavily in infrastructure in Russia across the board. Russian cities are clean, they're modern, subways work, airports are fantastic. Whereas I had one of my business partners had to go to Kiev. This was 5 years ago, and witnessed they were still using. This was in January, and as they debarked the plane, they weren't going through an enclosed ramp that took you into a warm building. They had to walk outside, and it was a metal railing. And one of the passengers put his hand on the metal railing. It was like he got stuck. They had to go in and get some coffee to pour coffee over his hand to get his hand loose. That's modern Ukraine. So yeah, the Bidens, the Biden family is just the corruption on it. If the Trumps had done even a fraction of what the Bidens have done, they'd be in jail.
Yeah. Well, okay. Sticking on the Bidens again, I don't mean to pick on them, but this is a breaking story this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Hunter Biden has been selling his bubble art for hundreds of thousands of dollars. They refuse to say who the buyers are. You can't do a background check on them. You don't know who they are, what their reasoning behind buying the president's son's art for jacked up prices. Well, now one of those names has leaked. The name is Elizabeth Neftali, according to Breitbart News. Now, they went deeper down the rabbit hole, And since buying these pieces of art, this woman from California has been invited to meet with Biden 13 times at the White House.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a coincidence, or are we just now getting a peek into the newest pay-to-play bribery scheme with the president's son's artwork and buying access into the White House? I mean, this is a breaking story today.
Yeah, the artwork is sort of a new novel approach. I mean, let's be candid. It's not just the Bidens, the Obama, the Bushes, Clintons, Reagans, Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter. Go all the way back. The people that make big contributions to political candidates end up getting plum positions as ambassador to the Vatican or ambassador to Germany, or all these sweetheart deals. What's different in this case is, in the past, the big donors, they had to be big money raisers, and it would go to the party for political activities. This one's going straight into the pockets of Hunter Biden, and the big guy gets a cut. So, siphoning off money. So this is corruption on a new scale. I would argue the U.S. political system has already been corrupt, but at least it was limited to, I'll give you money if you appoint me as ambassador here, or give me this kind of job in the cabinet so I look good on my resume, as opposed to, okay, we're going to buy Hunter's paintings, and he's going to siphon some of that money off the daddy, and then, hey, I get appointed to, it's like the Holocaust board or something. So yeah, it's taking, the Bidens are taking the corruption to a new level.
Yeah. Well, I'll continue to follow this story, and maybe we can talk about it in the future. But I want to keep my people in the loop on what's going on. And this was a breaking story. I didn't plan to talk about this with you, but right before we went on, this was sent to me, breaking news from Breitbart. And it kind of, I mean, if you're looking for patterns, this is just right in line with Hunter goes out, secures the money, brings it in, and people get access to daddy. It fits the pattern completely. And now they've, leaked this woman's name. Larry, if people want to follow you and get more information, is sonar21.com the best way to do that?
It is. That's the place.
Okay. How often do you update your blog on these big, important topics?
Once a day.
Once a day. Okay. Okay. That's a good stream of consistent information. Larry Johnson, former CIA, I want to thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your time and your wisdom and your experience to help us better understand this war and what's going on within our own borders. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Stephen. Always a pleasure.